Please nod if you can hear me. Good. I got a thumbs up from Jeanette. Jeanette, right? Okay. My name's Mike Evans. I'm from the retail group. Paul is my colleague. He's going to be doing some of the technical stuff and keeping me on track and reminding me not to go off at tangents, which is my favourite pastime. Listen, thank you very much for your time. I hope that we will be able to give you some practical tips, some practical advice, some practical guidance in terms of reopening your business or taking it to a wider audience if you've already been trading. The webinar that we've got in front of us this evening is based on a lot of the practical one-to-one support that we're providing to businesses around the country. So we've sort of tried to consolidate what we talk about when we speak to businesses on a personal level. And okay, notwithstanding that I can see a few people, fundamentally the webinar ends up being a bit impersonal from my side in as much as I sort of end up talking to the screen. So the aim is to give you some practical advice and to probably sort of trigger some practical thoughts for how you can sort of start to reopen and reawaken your businesses and or take them to another level. We sort of pretty much unashamedly will talk a lot about generating turnover and sales as we go through. Inevitably, we start with a fair amount of talking about getting some of the basics in terms of being safe and socially distanced, but we'll get on to talking about some turnover as well. So just as a bit of overview, we've got a short period of introduction and some overview of what's included within the overall program. A bit of sort of housekeeping stuff coming up, and then we get into how to operate safely, how to apply hygiene and safety routines to your business going forward. Fundamentally, how to make it easy for the customer. And we talk on, our view on that is about how to make it easy for the customer to choose you. And then how do you make sure that your business is set up to be easy for customers? How to keep them informed, and then there's a brief wrap up and summary, and we might even ask you for a bit of objective feedback as to how helpful the session has been.
Mike, can I just add that just as a matter of sort of protocol, we'll keep everyone muted during the meeting. If you want to get hold of us, either wave a hand, I can see everyone at the moment, or at the bottom of your screen, in the middle, there's a sort of a speech bubble that says chat. If you click on the chat function, you can then either choose to send a message to everyone, or you can send a message to either Mike or myself. And what we'll do is, if it's something that we can answer as we go through the presentation, we'll just drop it in. And then also, if not, and if your question is quite specific about your business, when we get to the end of the presentation, we're going to end with a quick poll as to how helpful or useful you found the webinar. But if you want to then stay on the line at the end, if you've got any specific questions, if we can help, we'll hang on and we'll do our best to answer any questions or concerns you have.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Paul. So, okay, right. Let's move forward. So we're going to give an overview of what we're trying to establish. Really, that in the round, we've sort of boiled it down to 3 areas. Really, one is the aim is to help any business that's currently closed. And we talk about sort of typically thinking about town centre businesses, customer-facing businesses, but it's about helping to with your planning to reopen. We also know that there's a lot that we'll talk about, which will also apply to those businesses that actually have been managing to trade either online or through click and collect, or in whichever way they've been able to trade. We can also help them in terms of expanding their operations as they go back to something, let's not call it normal, but back towards normal. And really, we know that through a lot of the work we do, we are focused on helping the smaller independent businesses. And we also know that the key thing, from having spoken to quite a few over the last few weeks, months, it's about understanding where the turnover is going to come from and how do I start to drive that turnover. It's easier to think about the hygiene, the health, the safety, the social distancing, but at the end of the day, it's about how do we grab hold of those customers and nurture those customers to help drive our business forward. As you may gather, I'm far better about talking about our business, but the whole program has been funded and sponsored by Best, and Best are they're a local regional. They work for and with the local authorities. They're part of the Southeast Local Enterprise Partnership. You're probably far more familiar with them than we are. We're working with a number of enterprise partnerships and local authorities across the country at the moment. We were introduced to Best via Laurie, who's is part of the audience today. Laurie, who works for Brentwood Council, she introduced us to Best, and they thought that this was a program that would be appreciated across the region. The driver for it at the moment. In terms of ourselves, Paul and I, I'm a shopkeeper by background. Many years ago, I ran stores for one of the big chains. I ran stores for Habitat. I set up a gift, gadget and gizmo chain of shops in the 80s, grew it to 20. And I decided to be a consultant because I thought it would look good on my CV for a few years. And that was about 26 years ago. And along the way, Paul and I ended up buying the business, and we own and operate it between us. And we're a macro SME, we're a small business. That's why we enjoy working with lots of small businesses as well. Our clients go from some of the biggest companies around there. We do lots of work in town centres. We do strategies for town centres, and we develop training programs for all sorts of retail businesses. And that's probably enough about us. But we're both retailers through and through, and the rest of our team are retailers in the broadest sense. And our retail clients range from food stores to car showrooms, through to high street multiples, through to mom and pop businesses, and through to lots of small independents. And along the way, we've also ended up being one of the leading advisors to the retail market sector. We wrote the first ever national training guide for market traders and a few things like that. So we get it from the customer perspective. In terms of the program that we have, we've got 3 webinars. Today, this one will then be repeated, and the idea is that each webinar will be delivered twice. The second webinar, which is going to start at the back end of next week and then run on to the week after, is more focused about reviewing your business, helping you to review your business, understanding it from the customer perspective, looking at what is it about your business that appeals to those customers, and then how do you use that information to help grow more turnover. That's a key part of what we do. And then the third webinar is really going to be a bit of a review, because maybe by then a few of you will have opened. It's a review, it's a bit more questioning of your own businesses, looking at how you might further adapt. And then also there's an element of working together with other local businesses in your area, in your neighborhood, for a little bit more of a collective approach to regeneration and regrowth. As part of the wider initiative, this is something that we're providing in other areas as well. We're providing one-to-one support. This is not part of the Best initiative at the moment. However, a number of local authorities are paying for this one-to-one support on top of these webinars. And so it may, if you are interested in the one-to-one support, we would suggest that you go approach your own local authority and say, hey, this is out there, and maybe get them to fund it rather than you fund it yourself. It's as simple as that. So, and the one-to-one support is really, it really is, we spend an hour or so discussing your business with you in quite some detail. We then produce an action plan. We then take you through the action plan and we hand it over to you. and Paul, the last one of these that we delivered was just on Saturday, and I'll steal Paul's thunder. When he was taking, that was a cafe, coffee shop, restaurant operator who's been in business in that town for years, and sort of, you know, fully understands the nature of their business. But once we've gone back through the sort of recovery plan that we created for them, based on information that they gave us, they described it as fantastic. And as a matter of fact, and we've even seen photos of their new, now takeaway oriented, it was a sit-in oriented, but they're now takeaway oriented business. And you can see they've really just taken some of the things we've said and they've applied them instantly. But I'm not going to name names or even name the town.
Mike, I think I'm most proud of the fact that this time last week I had a conversation with her and she insisted she didn't do social media. It wasn't for her. She was never going to use it. And then when I explained the benefits, within 3 days, she's got an Instagram page and a Facebook page and is using it actively. So
Right.
it can work. We can help.
Okay, right. So we'll start off with a bit of doom and gloom and a recap on the current situation, although, of course, even as of this evening, it's now changed. And as of Monday, we'll be travelling everywhere by public transport wearing masks. But you know, in terms of the retail sector, I find the non-essential and essential description of businesses is a little bit strange, because to all the independent business operators out there, of course, their business is vitally essential to them as it supports their income and their livelihood. But you know, we've been in a situation where the essential businesses have done a great job of seeing us through some of the basics, the food stores and the like, and they've kept us going, kept us in food. And interestingly, I think you know, a lot of customers will have built up a lot more loyalty to those businesses. Indeed, and then flipping way through to the smaller local businesses, I know even in the town where I live, the few local businesses that have managed to stay open have got fantastic support. Our local fruit and veg trader, he had a fantastic self-service offer, and then he stopped his self-service offer, and he said, basically, in order for me to provide anything, I can only sell pre-packed boxes of fruit and vegetables. So he moved away from self-service, started selling pre-packed boxes of vegetables, and he has a roaring trade. You know, you just go up there, there's not even anything on display other than a box of vegetables. And most days he completely sells out, and you know, good for him to adapt and change, and to keep going and keep providing a service. Anyway, we digress. I said I wouldn't. So the non-essential businesses are planned to open from the 15th of June. My wife runs a beauty therapy business, so she's mortified that she can't open on the 15th of June, but she knows that her time will come in good time. The key thing, I think, that sort of the key point to take forward is that social distancing in whatever form will be here with us for a while. And whether the distance gets reduced or whatever it may be, but there will be some form of social distancing, and therefore, you know, all customer-facing businesses are going to need to adapt in some way, shape, or form. And hopefully, through the course of this evening, we'll give you plenty of thoughts and ideas for how you might adapt and to take them forward. Paul and I have been talking to a number of businesses now about having a far more can-do approach. And we'll give you some examples of the can-do. Indeed, the fruit and veg was very much a can-do. Interestingly, he operates around the corner from two large branded food retailers, and so even that didn't deter him. So rather than sort of, oh my, you know, it's time to shut up shop and run away, he switched to what can I do and how can I go forward. Interesting. Under your obligations in terms of you know, the key part of going, you know, hygiene, safety for staff, customers, yourself. many of these obligations have been there all along, really. They're not necessarily new as a result of COVID-19. And many of these things are already built into existing businesses. And some of the other things that need to be done are fairly easy. Actually, and the government does have some very good information here. That the health and safety assessment, here we say it's on page 35. We are going to give you the link later and which page 35 to go to. But essentially, if you employ 5 or more people within your business, you need to complete the health and safety assessment and keep a record of it. If you employ less, you don't. You don't need to keep a record of it, but actually it's really advisable that you go through the process of doing the health and safety assessment. And in some ways, it's almost advisable that you actually promote the fact that you've gone through it. I think one of the things going forward, one of the things that we see from a lot of the wider research that's been done over the last couple of months is that customers are going to be choosing to go to places that they feel safe in. And they'll be choosing to go to shops that they feel safe in and businesses that they feel safe in. So a key part of making sure that your business projects the message that you're safe is to give the customer comfort to come to your business. So it will be important to have gone through the checks and to even, and again, the government have produced a template poster that you can put up in the window. And we do know that lots and lots of the large multiple retail businesses are going to be using that poster or a version of it, again, to reinforce that they're safe, they're in a good place, and that it's the customer should have every confidence in being able to come into your business.
Mike, the key thing to sort of understand in terms of your obligations is, these are all guidelines, these are all principles, these are all recommendations, these are things that the government would like you to do. They're not necessarily enshrined in law. So, things like having masks for your staff, it's not a legal requirement to do that. They're all advisory. The only thing you need to do is you need to do an up-to-date health and safety assessment. It doesn't have to be long, complicated, and as Mike says, you don't have to write it down. But there's almost like a kite mark, a COVID ready and safe sign, which already a lot of retailers are using, and it's something that almost if you don't have it, the customer's going to think, well, they can't be safe because they haven't got the sign. So we're going to show you what the sign is. We're going to show you where to get it from. But the most important thing here is do your health and safety assessment, and then use the sign, and then just demonstrate that you're matching the same safety standards as everyone else.
Thanks, Paul. So, in terms of what safety equipment will you need, and again, as to what you will need will depend on the nature of your business. Without knowing everybody's business, it's difficult to say. But certainly there's a whole variety, and my favourite one on this page, by the way, is the bottom right-hand box, which says that mops and buckets to clean floors. Who'd have thought that they would be classed as safety equipment? But anyway, that's a different story. So I think that there is a variety of safety equipment, and it depends on how the customer interacts with your business, how you staff interact with the customer. But there are some clear things, stuff to remind, information posters, tape to remind customers about the need for 2-meter social distancing. You've got whether it's face masks for the staff if they're serving in store, if it's screens to protect staff at the customer contact point, whether it be gloves, both for gloves for customers even, as well as gloves for staff, whether there's a whole variety of fairly basic essential things which will help to make the point to the customers that you are safe, and visibly makes a point, as much as having any sort of poster or the sort of the official sort of kite mark, "We are COVID ready." And I think that all of this equipment will also help to understand how you should adapt the way that you serve and interact with your customers, how you adapt your business. And we'll come on to layouts in a moment. But the key thing is that all of this makes the point, and it helps your business to be easy to be seen that you are being safe. And as part of that easy to be seen that you're being safe, there's an element of certain amount of signage. We've talked about the sort of the standard sign, whether you've got 2-meter signage, and we come up with some examples of this externally, whether you've got signage externally that limits the number of customers that you can fit in. It may be that you, as a business, that you can promote the fact that you are a by appointment business. If you're going to be a by appointment business, then how do they contact you? How do they make those appointments? Whether it be social media, telephone, etc. The key sort of signage again is when will you be open? And we'll come on to the operating and promotional side of signage in a moment. Whether within your business you've had to, by creating space within the business, you've had to remove fixtures, or whether you've now started to have one-way routing around the store, and indeed which way that is. And the key thing, I think one of the basic signs will be, what are your current trading hours? How might they be different to what they were historically? And I think that, you know, the combination of this signage, as I said, does one thing. It drives the point home to the customer that you're safe, helps keep your staff safe. And whilst this can be viewed as a burden to your business, the key thing about this is that it actually underpins and it is the building block for driving the sales and business growth going forward. Without this as part of your business mix, you know, customers may well start to walk straight past your business and start to look elsewhere. We'll come on to in a moment again about keeping it clear, simple and easy, and we can show you some examples of where even within one business they've got some aspects of signage correct, and they've fallen down on other aspects of signage. So here's a selection of different things, sort of, and we've Laurie, we've pinched your Brentwood Borough Council maximum number of people in the store. There are other businesses that are actually, in addition to having the maximum number of people in the store, they're actually promoting how many people in the queue. And then they're also saying, if the queue's full, please walk by and come back in half an hour. So they're turning what might be a negative into a positive customer service benefit. And then some simple sort of floor decals. You know, not everything has to be eye level and bi level, particularly if you want to include that area for your selling messages. And then this is a nice simple blackboard that's been done from a small local, as you can see, coffee shop takeaway business. They're making the point, we are open. They're also saying what we have on offer in a real simple, easy to absorb way. And then the other one, which is a simple graphic down here, the Deliveroo, please queue here. An easy idea that we've seen elsewhere and we've pinched and carried forward with other businesses is to keep if you're operating a takeaway or a delivered product, then keep the delivery drivers separate from the customer queue and treat them in a different way. And here you go, Paul, as you might you'll understand in a few moments, Paul loves a good cup of coffee, and this is his favourite local coffee shop, and boy does he love a good cup of coffee, right? What we like about this is that here's a business that none of this has cost this business any money. These are all existing props and equipment they use. They've converted their A board into this is 2 meters, please wait here. And they've even got a little strap line at the bottom, what we do for NHS and essential workers. The barrier rope is what they used to use in store as part of their daily clean down routine when they used to clean off an area, as food stores and restaurants like to do. So they've just recycled it, turned it into a handy queue thing. So it's just, what we like about this is it's simple, but it didn't cost them anything other than a bit of time and a bit of thought.
What they've also done, Mike, is they, don't get horrified, Laurie, but they've made some marks on the floor with smiley faces, and they've said, when the next VIP line is clear, please move forward 2 meters. And they've just basically made a bit of fun about it. They made made the customer feel special. They also advertising the fact that they're doing NHS queue jumps as well. So again, if that's something that you decide to do, then make sure you promote it and let everyone know.
Okay, so we mentioned the sort of the government formal sign that's part of their package. Here it is, and as you can see, it says we've carried out our risk assessment. We've got cleaning, hand washing, hygiene procedures in line. We've taken reasonable steps to help people work from home. We've taken all reasonable steps to maintain a 2-meter distance. And then we've done everything practical. You know, here's the employer, here's the date, and you will see more of these in shop windows, by the door, and it's just making a simple statement. And I think subconsciously you might start to see that, almost customers subconsciously expect to see this, and if they don't see it as part of your external messaging, they'll subconsciously start to walk on by because they might not view you as being safe. Now, so there's a very formal version. I mentioned my wife's a beauty therapist. So the way that she informed her customers about her approach to being safe was different. She put on her face mask, she put on her visor, she put on her gloves, she put on her uniform, her work uniform, and then took a selfie and sent it to all of her clients and said, just to let you know, when I do open for business, I might look a little bit strange compared to how I normally look. So that's doing the same thing about promoting and reminding of the safe, but in a slightly less high level. Okay, moving on to how do you operate safely, and I'll try and sort of speed up a little bit. In terms of operating, there's all sorts of different questions. How many people should I allow in my space? Can I afford? How many people can I fit? Can I fit more than one person in through the door? Should all of my staff be customer facing? Do I need to change the way I operate? How can I how can I serve customers quickly? How can I possibly serve customers if I can't actually engage with them? And then on the flip side, it's what about my deliveries into the store? How do I treat with my suppliers? And then, how do I cope with lots of additional cleaning, not just at the end of the day cleaning? So lots of questions. A few of the answers that we've looked at. And we start, and we make no point, we bang, this is a favorite phrase of ours about making it easy for the customers and for the staff. We like to, our driver is about making it easy for the customer to choose to buy from you. And then once they've made that choice, to make it easy for the customer to actually buy from you. So, we sort of, the opening point is, how close to normal can you operate? If you can operate fairly normally, and even within your normal operation, enable some social distancing, both for the staff and for the customers, then if you can, great, crack on, keep going, but don't forget to deliver all of the health, safety, social distancing messages. If you need to adapt, then there's some fundamentals to think about. Do I have to go as far as not allowing people into my premises because I can't cope with the social distancing? I haven't got the room. And then do I need to revert to a kiosk style operation where literally people come to the front door, we have one person who interacts with them, talks to them about what they'd like to buy from us, and then another member of staff does the go for running around, collects everything, brings it back, and so we have a personal contact version of click and collect in effect. Or can I possibly remove some of my fixtures so that I can actually allow people in? And then start to think about the simple age-old retail adage of 80-20, 80% of the sales coming from 20% of the stock, which means that you could remove an awful lot of stock, an awful lot of lines from display, so long as you still remind people that you've got it, and that you link the sales. So there are different ways. So we can actually create some space. Could we even, if you're in a location that's blessed with wide pavements, could we speak to the council about taking some of our retail activity externally? Can we add a canopy to the front of the business so we start to bring our product directly to the customer? So 3 different ways of fairly radically changing how you operate, but all focused around the same thing: making it easy for the customer. How do we get the product as close as we can to the customer? And then whatever you do, make sure you bring your customers along the journey. I know it's a sort of a slightly glib statement, along the journey, but if you're going to implement changes, make sure you tell the customer about the changes and involve them in that changing process. And again, when we talk about looking after your staff, here we're on about looking after them operationally, not looking after them from a health and safety or a purely health and safety perspective. Here, as basic as if your staff, you and your team, you need tools to operate. And I don't mean just a pen, but if you're a haberdashery and you need tape measures and pins and etc., scissors, does everybody have their own set, so that we're not sort of sharing and passing and moving from hand to hand? If we're working in a kitchen preparation, does everybody have their own set of knives? Do they have their own workspace? Can staff work side by side or even back to back with each other rather than face to face, so that we're reducing that transmission risk? Depending on the number of people you employ, can we put them into teams? Can we keep separate teams and separate times? And again, it's that sort of also now reminding them of how they travel to work. They need to be safe in how they travel to work, so that they're not picking up any risk of any contact and any infection as they come into work. So there's a whole gambit there of looking after the staff from an operational perspective, not just from a health and safety perspective.
I think one thing we could add to that, Mike, is keep the trading area and the working area well ventilated. So if you've got the option of opening windows, get them all open, get the doors open, wedge the doors open, and really try and get a good sort of throughput of air as much as possible. That's also recommended.
Thank you. Right. We're big fans of checklists, and there's a simple reason for it, is that once you've done the checklist, you've done all the hard work, and you only need to do the hard work once. It's relatively easy implementing, so it'll save you time every day. And forgive me if this is a sort of a complete reminder of stating the obvious, but checklists are good things to use. And it's whether it's a pre-opening checklist, whether it's a during the day checklist. Here we've just got a few examples of the content. You'll need to develop your own, but the purpose is so that you do the thinking once, and then it's something that's quick and easy to implement, whether it be you implementing it, one of your team. But in the preparation phase, don't skip, don't skimp, do it once and do it right. So, and again, thinking of how we operate during the day, there's a sort of a few things that are occurring to us, right? It's likely that there will be fewer customers around. There will be fewer people out in town centres. There'll be more than there are now, but there won't be anything like. So it's the key thing is to sort of treat all of these and nurture every possible customer. So, how can we, and all businesses have peaks and troughs, how can you as a business spread the peak across a longer time of the day? Can you start to have sort of timed contact with customers, and even start to suggest customers to come to you at different times of the day? And in the same way, how do you manage, can we be better at managing the deliveries into our business so that it's easier for us to accommodate them? Can we even have fewer deliveries into our business so that we're having less contact? It may be that we need to order more for each individual delivery, and then instead of having one a week, we have one a fortnight, one or once a month, just so that we're keeping focused on keeping that sort of element of contact down. And then don't be afraid if by some chance your business is overwhelmed with customers, then don't be afraid to put up the temporary barrier and say, please wait here while we just while we deal with this short-term rush, or even while we then clean down after being busy. These are all good solid practice to do. And again, it's about how can you look at your peak periods. Sorry, Paul. Yeah.
I was going to say one of the sort of key messages to this slide is basically about coping with peak periods. So as much as you can, try and do the sort of non-essential stuff, or the stuff that you can do in downtimes. Do those first. Do the replenishment first thing in the morning. Do the cleaning at regular routines throughout the day. Don't leave it to lunchtime, because the key here, and we're unashamedly trying to push home the message that it's about maximizing performance, get it right for your customer, make it easy for your customer, make it quick for your customer, and then basically maximize sales at peak times.
Thanks, Paul. You stole the words out of my mouth, as it were. Right. Okay. So on to, as you might have gathered now, onto an all-time favourite topic of ours in terms of making it easy for your customer. It comes back to this, this point I mentioned earlier about nurturing each and every customer and treating them as a valuable asset. If there are fewer people out and about in the town centres, on the high streets, for a variety of reasons, we need to make sure that the few that are coming in are fully aware that your business is open, fully aware of how you're operating. If they're regular customers of yours, fully aware of what changes you've made to your business, and how you've adapted your business, and also how that will help them. It's a key thing is, it's start through looking at your business through the eyes of the customer. We say here, easy to see, easy to understand, easy to buy, but actually it's easy to choose and easy to use. And part of that being easy to use in this current environment will be seen as being a safe business. That will be, fortunately, I feel as though I'm banging a bit of the same drum, but it will be seen as being a safe business. And in terms of, that sort of making it easy for the customer, it's make it easy for them to see the things they want to buy, as much as it is for them to see the things you want to be selling to them. So focus on bestsellers, focus on key product areas, focus on advising them how can they buy from you remotely, even if it's not coming into you. What can they pre-order? And of course, make the effort to promote the social media activity, if only for them to find out regular updates on your business.
I just gave a couple of examples. A couple of retailers near to me. One of them, who's an independent food business, they stick out a list of 15 to 20 products that have just come in stock, that are available. They put it out on Instagram, they put it out on Facebook. Another example is a local butcher. I got told off last week for going in on Saturday and ordering a load of different products. And he said, look, basically make it easy for you and me. Give me a call the day before, tell me what you want. I'll have it all made up and then just come and pick it up and pay for it. So, it's all about, as Mike says, make it as quick and as easy. And, on the one hand, you need to make sure customers are queuing safely outside your store, but no one wants to see 15, 20, 25 people waiting in the queue to get there. So the more you can make it easy, the quicker that people can buy from you.
Thank you. This is a simple, easy picture, and there's a bit of good and bad going on here. Because on the plus side, it's easy to see that they've got some groceries in stock, that we can sell you some eggs, some fresh yeast, and so clearly this is normally a restaurant business. And what they can do here is, and they've listed the things that they can provide you as you're going away. They're promoting their takeaway drinks offer, but unfortunately, as you see, the small typed graphic just is lost in the overall message, and that's the graphic that talks about social distancing. That's the graphic that talks about hygiene and cleansing, and we're ready for you. So they've got, you know, big stuff about the sales and the product, but actually part of that keeping people comfortable, they've just glossed over, and it's gone a bit too small and too distant. So, you know, the learning point here is about making sure that the messages are in proportion, but at least they are using their window. At least they are using their window, which is a big, you know, and they've thought differently about their business. So in terms of creating, so we talk here about creating an easy layout for the customer, and all too often, lots of businesses, the space allocation and how the store space is used is from the benefit of the retailer and the operator. So again, how can we make it easy for the customer? So number one, is the way that we are going to serve you, is that really obvious and quick and easy for them to see? Are the staff ready and fully able to serve them? And that's the point. It's not that are they ready and fully able, but are they visibly able to be serving? You know, a couple of years ago, we worked with actually over in Essex, and I won't mention the town or the place, but we did some work with some market traders, and I told this story about another market where the one of the hot food businesses, when we saw them and the staff turned round, on the back of the uniform, it said, "We do outside catering." So I mentioned this, and we were doing some training sessions in groups in the days when you were allowed to have training in groups. And so we, I mentioned it on one session, and by the time we came back a week later, one of the traders who had a food business suddenly turned up in a sweatshirt, and it said, "We do outside catering." Now, that you could take that to, in terms of promoting your service here, the staff could say, "I'm here and ready to serve you from 2 meters." It's just getting the point over that we are ready there and we're ready to serve people. Paul's already touched about making sure that the trading area is ventilated and the service point is ventilated. There is a particular thing at the moment that takeaway cafes and restaurants are not meant to have external seating. Indeed, they're meant to be taped off and removed. And this is likely to continue until at least the 4th of July. And again, in terms of the layout, you know, is the positioning of our merchandise within our space? And bear in mind that our space might have radically changed. We might not have an internal space. We might just have a window. We might just have an external space. But is the positioning of our product focused on the things that we most want, that we sell most, and that we most want to sell? So here's a classic example. This is another favourite of ours. This is a bar called Joyce, and it is a bar. That's its fundamental business. And I think that the good thing here is that this business didn't go, right, oh dear, we can't have people in our bar, we can't sell pints anymore. They've gone, actually, what we can do is we can start to sell other things. And we already have suppliers that supply us with food and bread and milk and cream and dirt. So they flipped their business into a slightly different model. And then, you know, another small local business, which is a craft beer manufacturer, craft beer. They said, okay, right, we're going to just go into local deliveries, and we'll do the delivery free. And then, you know, you might have to wait for the delivery, but at least we'll be able to bring you some of our good beer to you as soon as we can. So, as we said, it's about looking at the positive opportunities. Do what you can, and try not to dwell on the things you can't do. Right. We're applying a simple rule that we've used for decades. There are only 2 ways to increase your sales. There are only 2 ways to increase your sales. One is you sell more to the customers you have, and the other is you sell to more customers. It doesn't get any more complicated than that. So we worked with a sandwich retailer many years ago up in the northeast, up in Paul's part of the world where he comes from. In those days, I'm going back a few years, their average transaction value was £1.75, which surprisingly was the price of a sandwich that they sold. we changed the way that they presented their kiosk business, so that as people picked up the sandwiches, they were tempted with bags of crisps, chocolate, teas, coffee, cans of Coke, pop, etc. And their average transaction went from £1.75 to £2.57. Now, not a huge growth, but actually about another 80p per customer. And at 500 customers a day, that suddenly becomes an awful lot of extra turnover. So, so our selling more to the customers is, what is it that we can add on to the product they want to buy from us? How do we take that to another level? How do we convert? How do we make every third customer buy one extra product through logical linked sales? Don't think of it as selling add-ons. Nobody wants to buy an add-on, but what are the things that make that purchase complete? And then again, how do we encourage pre-ordering? The same restaurant business that Paul mentioned earlier that he spoke to on Saturday, we got them to issue to every Deliveroo driver at every drop-off. They now take a mini menu, and people can pre-order meals of the day across the week. And all they have to do is take a photo of it and send it through to the business. The business then phones up to take payment, very important, and then they'll have the meals ready for them. So it's about looking at taking the business a step forward. In terms of selling to more customers, again, I've probably shot myself in the foot by saying there are going to be fewer customers on the high street. So therefore, whilst there are fewer, we need to make sure that we're getting some of the basics right, that they can see what we sell, both physically in the window, virtually on social media, that we've got good, clear messages in the window. We do work with lots of different independent businesses, and often the windows get thought about last. They don't get changed that often. They become sort of substitute display spaces. So it's again about how we use those windows going forward. So I'm going to whiz on before Paul starts giving me the "you're taking too long" sign. So in terms of informing your customers, oh, hello. So there are some absolute essentials that you need to keep people advised of. When are you going to be open? How is that changing? How has that changed from what they're used to? And indeed, if it's going to keep changing, how is it going to keep changing? As we said, you need to make sure that people know that you're a safe place to visit. You're a safe place for them to shop and stop and talk. They need to understand your service process, your service model. How have you adapted? How are you trying to keep it focused on them? Are you able to cope with pre-orders? And I'm not going to go through each list in turn. The key thing is, what promotions are you running? How are they changing? Have you launched any new services? How should they contact you? How should they ask you questions? Lots of information that customers want to know. They don't all need this via signs and posters and graphics. Some of it will be driven by the way you lay out the store. Some of it will be driven by your hygiene, cleansing messages. A lot of it will come through on various social media channels. But the key thing is, keep them informed, keep them aware, particularly of anything that you are doing different. Because you don't want them to suddenly go, oh, hang on, oh no, that's not the business I know, and walk on by. You want to know that it is the business that they know, but you've done some changes. Now, Paul's going to probably tell me off and tell me that I'm a little bit old school here. I think going forward that the little blue bird and the big F and the www and the WhatsApp and the Instagram, those are all the things that people have been going through for a few months now. What they're going to crave for is a little bit of talking to them, a little bit of the personal contact. And the more personal you can make some of those social media messaging, the better. But they'll like some personal contact. They'll engage with some personal contact. Even if it's 2 meters distance, you can still have a conversation. So I think that, whether it be phoning people up, whether it's speaking to them, whether being a visible face for your business at that front door, that many smaller independent businesses are often about the personality of the owner and the personality of the business provider. So the more that you can deliver that personality at the point of customer contact, the better. I've got away with that one. He hasn't told me off. Right. So, okay. Oh, look at your phone. Right. Okay. Right. And on that note, we've probably mentioned enough about this, but if you've the importance of your window to help you convert new and additional customers is huge. And the more you can do to make it easier for people to see and understand your business through the delivery of your window, the better. So whether that's moving the product closer to the window, that's up to a point almost regardless of the product. Whether you're using the signage effectively, but please don't make it wall-to-wall signage, because then it becomes wallpaper. And if it becomes wallpaper, nobody really notices wallpaper, unless you're in the interior design business. You certainly want to create some impact to people as they're passing by. And the key thing is about making that statement that you're open for business and that you're welcoming and ready to do business. So in terms of a very brief wrap up and summary, because I'm probably guilty of overrunning slightly. So fundamentally, you have a primary requirement to operate safely, and that's safely for the benefit of you, your staff, and certainly for your customers. And the more you can project that message, the better it will be. And actually, the more you project that message, the better it will underpin the future sales performance of your business. The key thing is that this phrase about making it easy for the customer to buy from you. And actually, if you look at your business through that prism, look at how you operate through the prism of, right, my driving point is making it easy for the customer to choose me, to know where I am, to understand what my offer is, to want to be able to buy from me. If you sort of preface all of those phrases with making it easy for the customer, that will certainly help you reposition your business, not only as COVID, but reposition your business as a customer-focused business. There is quite a bit of good information and good advice out there for some of the basics to do with the cleaning, the hygiene, the safety. A lot of that is from the HMG, and credit due where it's given. There are some really good publications. Here's a few of the links. You don't need to write them down because this will be recorded, and we can and all of these links are going to be available via Best as well. So and there are some. I think the top link is the one where we reference page 35. Is that right, Paul?
No, it's the second.
Second. Sorry, thank you.
The top link is basically, it's a sort of a portal within the government website for lots of really good information on basically trading safely within COVID. So it's very much about safety as opposed to customer focus and service and maximizing sales, etc. But that top one's really good because it takes you onto, there's a dedicated report on trading safely for retailers, and there's also a separate and dedicated report for trading safety for food businesses. Both of them are really good, so have a look at those. The second bullet down is the first one is it's a bit more technical. It's health and safety executive. That's about doing risk assessments. A bit more dry, but it explains you what's involved, how to operate safely, and then it gives you a link and a template to doing the actual health and safety assessment. And then the third and fourth bullet points are sort of trade support organisations, FSB and the BRC. And then that the last link is also quite useful. It's aimed at consumers about how to shop safely, but it's only about a minute and a half long. It's a video on the BBC website, and it actually it gives you as retailers and as food businesses, it gives you really good feedback and really good instructions, clear instructions on how to operate safely.
And just sort of before we sort of finally wrap up, just to remind that so we're repeating this webinar, won't be verbatim, but we're repeating it on Tuesday, and then webinar 2, which is the one more focused about understanding the customer and looking at using that information to grow sales. That's today, same time next Thursday, and webinar will be in 2 weeks time, 2 weeks today on a Thursday. So we'd love to have you come back and hopefully can provide a bit more help, direction and practical support then. I think, oh, there you go. I've already gone ahead of the next page, right. So Paul is good. I think we've got we're going to ask to a bit of feedback in terms of how helpful. The webinar will be available from Best or via Best to watch again. It's not sort of a downloadable from Facebook or YouTube or wherever. You have to request it from Best. And I said next Thursday we'll look predominantly at how to increase customer transactions and average transaction values.
Okay, Mike, we've got a slight technical hitch on the survey. I'm just recreating it, so you just carry on for about another 30 seconds, and I'm just going to then launch the survey.
Oh, okay, right. Well, carry on for another 30 seconds. There we go. That's an easy one, as I've done my wrap up. So, Paul, you do have a number of. Oh, right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Basically, if you wouldn't mind just filling in those questions, this is the last part of the webinar. Obviously, we're very interested in how helpful you found it, so please do vote. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to open everyone's mic. So if you do want to stay on and chat, and if you've got any questions, if we can answer, we will try and do so. And if you haven't seen the chat and you want a copy of the webinar, it is available from Darren Moss at southend.gov.uk. That's Darren Moss, all one word, at southend.gov.uk. Okay, and at that point, I'm going to open up the floor and. Okay, you'll get a message saying, do you ask to unmute? If you want to stay on and ask a question, then please feel free to. Otherwise, hopefully we'll see you next Thursday.